Let's be honest. The aftermath of a road accident is just incredibly stressful and confusing. But what if you had a clear guide, a roadmap to your rights and the whole claims process? Well, that's what we're doing today. We're breaking down India's motor third-party insurance laws and turning all that complex legal stuff into a straightforward guide for every single driver.
So let's get right to the heart of it with the one question that really matters. If you're involved in an accident, what are your actual legally protected rights? That is exactly what we are going to answer right now, clearly and directly.
Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at why this safety net even exists. Then, we'll walk through those critical first moments right after a crash and the two main ways you can make a claim. We'll even get into the nitty-gritty of how compensation is calculated, check out the huge rule changes from 2019, and finally, we'll cover what to do if the system doesn't work the way it's supposed to.
All right, first things first. To really get a handle on your rights today, it actually helps to take a quick look back at how this whole legal safety net was built in the first place.
You know, this whole idea of mandatory third-party insurance, it's not new at all. We're talking all the way back to 1939. For more than 80 years, this law has been tweaked and updated, but every single change has been focused on one thing: doing a better job of protecting accident victims and making sure they get the help they need.
Okay, now let's shift gears to maybe the most critical moment of all. What happens in the immediate aftermath of an accident? The steps you take here are not just suggestions. They are defined by law, and they are so important.
So a lot of the law is actually built around this really important medical idea, the golden hour. It's the first 60 minutes after a serious injury. Getting medical help within this window can literally be the difference between life and death. And you'll see the latest laws are designed specifically to make that happen.
Okay, so Section 134 of the Motor Vehicle Act spells this out pretty clearly for us. Your number one duty, above all else, is to get any injured person to the nearest hospital. Then, you've got 24 hours to let the police know, and you also have to get in touch with your insurance company. And this is vital. The law now protects good Samaritans. So if you see an accident, you can step in and help without fearing any legal trouble.
All right, so once the immediate crisis is over and everyone is safe, the big question becomes compensation. The law actually gives victims a couple of different ways to file a claim, and you really need to know the difference between them.
Basically, you've got two main paths you can take. The first one is called fault liability. Now with this one, you have to prove that the other driver was careless and caused the accident. It's a bit more work, for sure, but the potential compensation is unlimited. The other option is no fault liability. Here, you don't have to prove whose fault it was at all, which makes it much simpler, but the payout is a fixed amount.
Okay, so what about that first path, the fault liability one with unlimited compensation? How in the world is that number actually calculated? Well, it's all based on a specific formula that came out of a landmark Supreme Court case called Pranay Sethi. This was a huge deal because it created a standard, fair system for everyone instead of the old way where payouts could be all over the place.
Whoa, okay. That looks like a lot of math, right? But don't worry, stick with me here. We're going to break down what every single piece of this formula means. It's actually way more logical than it looks.
First up is dependency. Think of it this way. It's the part of the victim's paycheck that was actually used to support their family. To figure this out, the court subtracts what the person would have spent on themselves. So, for a family of 4, the court assumes about a quarter of the income was for personal use, meaning the other 3/4 was for the family. Next up is a concept that I think is really smart: future prospects. The law basically says, hey, this person's income probably would have gone up over time with raises and promotions, so it adds a percentage to their current income to account for that future growth. The exact percentage depends on their age and the kind of job they had.
And then we have the multiplier. This is basically a number that the court uses to figure out the total loss of income over the years. As you can see, a younger person gets a higher multiplier because they had more working years ahead of them. This number gets multiplied by that yearly income we just figured out to give us the total loss.
Okay, theory is great, but let's make this real. Let's use an actual case study to see how this all fits together. Imagine a 39-year-old with a permanent job earning 20,000 rupees a month and leaving behind 4 dependents.
Okay, so let's plug in the numbers together. Step 1, with 4 dependents, we take out 1/4 for his personal expenses. Step 2, he's 39 with a permanent job, so we add 50% for future prospects. Step 3, we look at the chart and the multiplier for his age is 15. We run all those numbers and then we add a fixed amount for things like funeral costs. And the grand total is 41,27,000 rupees, plus any medical bills. See? When you break it down, it's just a step-by-step process.
Now, laws aren't static, right? They evolve. And the 2019 Amendment Act brought in some really big, important changes that are designed to help victims even more.
First up, and this is a big one, they seriously increased the support for victims of a hit and run. The compensation for a death in one of these awful cases was bumped up in a major way, all the way to 2 lakh rupees.
And hey, remember that easier no-fault path we talked about? Well, the 2019 update made that a much more attractive option. The fixed compensation for a death is now a flat 5 lakh rupees. That makes it a much faster and more effective way for many families to get the relief they need.
But wait, there's more. The amendment also brought in a bunch of other really practical, common-sense changes. It created a plan for cashless treatment during that critical golden hour. It made it the police's job to file the first report within 3 months, and it made insurance automatically transfer when a car is sold. And maybe most importantly, it got rid of the old 6-month time limit for filing a claim, which was a huge roadblock for so many people.
Okay, so you know your rights, you've done everything you're supposed to, but what happens if the insurance company just isn't playing ball? Maybe they're delaying, or they've unfairly denied your claim. Well, the law gives you options.
You've got 2 main places you can turn to for help. You can file a complaint under the Consumer Protection Act saying there was a deficiency in service, or you can go to the Insurance Ombudsman. This is an independent group that was set up specifically to solve problems between people and their insurance companies for claims up to 30 lakh rupees.
So really, what's the big takeaway from all of this? India's Motor Vehicle Act has built a pretty strong safety net for all of us on the road. But a safety net only works if you know it's there. Understanding your duties, your options, and your rights, that is absolutely the most powerful tool you have.
And that kind of leaves us with one final, bigger question, doesn't it? The laws for getting compensation after an accident are definitely stronger and fairer than ever, but this is a system that only kicks in after a tragedy has already happened. So the bigger question for all of us is what more needs to be done to stop these accidents from happening in the first place?